Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who left a career in tech sales, including a stint at Zoom during one of the most chaotic runs in tech history, and channeled everything she learned about building trust and closing deals into her mortgage business. In just a few years, she has built a streamlined, systems-driven operation that consistently closes in 14 days, all while raising 2 kids on her own and staying ruthlessly focused on what actually makes a difference. Ryan Hayes, welcome to the Lowdown.
Welcome. That makes me sound kind of cool. Thanks for that intro.
Yeah, you are kind of cool. It's been really fun getting to know you. I like that you're like very unfiltered and authentic and just it's been fun to kind of get to know your story. So I'm excited to get it out there to more people today and just, have this opportunity to talk. So I like to just jump right into things. I mentioned tech sales in the introduction there. You came from that background, including time with Zoom sort of during the pandemic. And then a friend in mortgage like told you that you could do this. What was the moment that made you think they were actually right?
Well, I put a little bit of thought to it, right? So when people tell me things, I'm relatively skeptical. And then I thought, well, what do you even do? I'd been through the process. So at that time, I had purchased on my own 4 houses. So in the 4th house that I had purchased, I thought back on my experiences. The first one was trash. I didn't know what I was doing. I was way too young. Worked with a builder's agent. Everything went sideways, but got in the house, right? And then worked with a friend to buy a house, worked with another friend to buy a house, and then landed where I was here. And I thought back about that process, and I thought about what loan officers or lenders were doing at that time for me when it came to buying a home. And I thought, well, it's relatively simple, right? It's just do what you say you're going to do. Get the numbers right, because ultimately that's pretty important in this business, and teach and explain. So as you're going along, this is a huge, gigantic thing, right? We're buying a house. It's a big purchase. Unless you're going to go buy a yacht and live in Miami and sail your life away, buying a house is probably the biggest investment you're going to make. So how do we make people feel comfortable? And with my experience in sales and dealing with C-level employees, so CEOs, CFOs, controllers, and explaining processes to them and being very streamlined, if I can do it at that level, I could explain it to a couple that just got married, or a couple that is expanding their family, or a brand new first-time home buyer that literally has no idea what the hell to do in this process and just wants somebody to take their time and explain it to them. So when I came into this business, I had 2 young children, and I always tell people that I have patience of a saint because I repeat myself 100 times a day. And so if I have to repeat myself 100 times a day to them, I surely can repeat myself 100 times a day to a buyer and help them understand what's happening, why we're doing it. Because again, that was my life at the time with 2 young children, getting them through just like why we have to take a bath, or why we have to wear clothes, or why we have to eat good food, So when I saw what they did for a living and I thought back of what my skill set was, I figured, why not? Let's just try.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I've talked to a lot of originators on this show, and the story seems to kind of follow the same arc, but you have a different one. A lot of folks tell me they struggled really early. They kind of reached this point where they were reaching a burnout, and they realized at that point that they needed to add some design and intentionality into their business. But you came in kind of already understanding that and started, wanting that for your business from day one. Like, where did that come from, and how has it shaped the way you've built your team and your business and the structures around you?
Yeah. So I think anything that you do has to be duplicatable, right? Anything that you do. So when you cut your grass, you probably follow the same pattern, right? When you fold your towels, you're folding your towels the exact same way. And it's only for efficiency perspectives, right? So I needed to replace a salary. So that was one thing, right? There's a little bit of pressure to replace a larger salary. And how are we going to do that? And how are we going to ramp up? And most times when people change careers, there's that crosshair, right? So when is this going to cross this? And then it makes sense because this income is taking off and going that way. So the easiest way to do that is to have a process that you can do every single time and make it make sense. And so I went after larger offices, and that's all I did. Is I went in very top line. Do you have somebody that you love? Yes or no? And if you love them, what do they do that's great? And if you don't have somebody, why don't you have somebody? And what are you missing? And if I can either replicate what you love and what they do great, and add value, will you work with me? Or if you haven't found somebody that you love because they're not giving you what you need, how can I give you what you need and you work with me? And so I built the trust. I already had folks in the community that know, love, and trust, right? But you have to build the trust with the agents who are your frontline marketing partners, right? They are going out there, they're saying, I don't know regulations. I don't know how to give you money, but I've got somebody that has educated me enough to point you, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, family buyer, in the right direction of somebody that can help you. And so that's what I did, is I went in from a very top line, streamlined, what do you love? Can I duplicate it? What don't you love? Can I fill that gap? Can I be your trusted partner? And I'll give you whatever you need to grow your business as we grow together in this process.
Yeah. Simple questions, but very bold questions that I think a lot of people would probably be kind of scared to ask.
Yeah.
And so I love that you were willing to just kind of go for it from the get-go. And I guess where did you develop those questions? Does that come from your sales background in a previous
Yeah. So
industry or?
when I sold human capital management, which is how larger organizations run and manage their employees, right? Everything from HR to payroll to back-end systems to learning management technology. I had a wonderful mentor. And to this day, on my phone, I have him recorded. And he was probably the most bold, direct, yet loving, calm, and compassionate human. Right. So we would go into meetings and it is what it is. Like, what's broken? And you ask what's broken 5 different times. And on question number 1, it's one thing, right? And you go, well, that's great. So if we fix this, what else is broken? Okay, great. Well, what else is broken? And suddenly you have a list of 8 broken things. And then, okay, well, what's working well? That's great. So what else is working well? And so in the process, and that's technology components that we're building together to make a better infrastructure, right? And so I just used, he was great to me. He taught me so much. He was a gigantic mentor, and I apply that in everything I do. In negotiating with my children, if I go buy a car, negotiating to a car, like just asking questions to the point where my friends will literally tell me to stop asking strangers questions. Because I'm the kind of person, we're at the beach and I'm like, hey, I'm Ryan, what do you do for a living? And they're like, please just sit down and put your sunscreen on. I like to know. So I just ask a bunch of questions, understand personality types, understand how people tick, what's working, what's not working, and how we can job together.
Yeah, well, I love the concept because honestly, to get better answers, you need to ask better questions and you need to be willing to understand the power of the question and really be thoughtful about how you're asking and what you're asking and the follow-up and all of the different things that go into that. So I think it's a huge element to just success in sales and in business. So, hats off to you for that. Now, you've mentioned that the conversation that you have with every borrower typically follows the same structure and almost down to the word, right? To where your agents can kind of recite it back to you. Walk me through how you develop that process and why consistency at that level really matters so much to you.
Yeah, well, so I think it matters because you've got people, to no fault of their own, who are embarking on a gigantic purchase with very limited to no knowledge. Because we don't have a class in school on home buying. We just don't, right? And the only time someone's actually going to take a structured class in home buying is if they're getting something like down payment assistance from the state and they're required to click through slides for 3 hours while they're multitasking and or watching a movie with their family, right? And then they grasp a little bit of knowledge on it. And I think that when they're emotional, so again, getting into somebody's mind and understanding where they're coming from. If they're a financial advisor, they're used to DocuSign. If they are working with their hands in a factory, in a warehouse, DocuSign, their fingers are probably shaking as they're pushing that button because they don't understand. And so, after we go under contract, here are some things that are going to happen, right? XYZ is going to happen, and that's your job. You're going to shop for your homeowner's insurance. Inspections are going to be scheduled because we want to make sure that the home is of quality. I'm going to order the appraisal because we're going to make sure that the home is of value. So every single one of us is working together as a team. And so I drill that concept down too, that this isn't just you sign my DocuSign and you've got no control. You have a lot of control. In that process, you have 25% of control. because you've got a process to do. Your agent has to do something. I have to do something, and title has to start their title work. So again, we're all together as a team, because one thing that's scariest to these folks is that they don't think that anybody has their back. And they don't understand, because oftentimes these leads are coming in cold. Now, we might have a warm sphere lead, right? We might have an uncle or a cousin, or we play pickleball with somebody. But sometimes these folks are asking a stranger for help. And so over communication helps in that process too. So it's very clear. The directives are, you do this, I do this, he or she does that, attorney does this, then we go to the next step, because they want to know. They might not want to know what's in the sauce, but they want to know that they're going to get something.
Yeah. And I guess maybe as an example of that, you shared a story with me where you had a referral that had sort of shopped around, ended up in a different situation where the rate was worse, the fees were higher. It was a 33-day close when you knew that you could have probably done it in 15 or so, all because someone, said they ordered title work and the borrower just felt stuck. Like, what does a situation like that teach you about where your competition lives, and how have you adjusted the way that you educate clients up front
Yeah,
to that,
for sure.
competition?
Yeah, so I think the challenge is, and we see this a lot, it's very, very easy if somebody is in that mentality to prospect to get something like a refinance, right? It's public knowledge. You know who owns the property. We know if they take a mortgage. With the internet and with chat, we could go in and we could say, hey, if they bought this house on May 10th of 2023, what would their interest rate be? And then we can go, ding, we got one. We think we can go lower. So again, it is 100% the education that we push out on an ongoing basis for new prospects, which are new home buyers. For those who have already gotten in their home, I actually today sent 10 different text messages directly to my borrowers. I got a message out of our system that said, hey, their interest rates are dropped. They can save money. We need to contact them, because we need to be the first ones from a warm place that they already trust us, saying, hey, interest rates have dropped and here's a realistic rate. Because I got a text last week that said, hey, they said they can get me a 4 point something. Can y'all do that? Well, the answer is no, because the credit score would give us loan level adjusters that you would never really touch that unless you bought the rate down, and that financially doesn't make sense. So let's talk through what that looks like. After I educated them to tell them that wasn't possible, disclosures went out yesterday for a refi for them. We can get them down 1%, but realistically not 2. And so again, it's just keeping ahead of pitfalls that our borrowers or future borrowers can fall into by not getting the right information.
Right. And that's a trend that I'm hearing more and more about as I talk with originators. As they're meeting with their clients, they're starting to see I guess the damage that all the information that's out there is causing, right? Like the misinformation, the
Yeah.
confusion. They might go to Chat GPT, or they could Google this, or they're seeing another video on TikTok, and it's just so much
Yeah.
to where they're now kind of almost in this phase of like, I want to meet with the loan officer now. I mean, I know for years it's kind of been like, I haven't met a prospect, or, a client in a long time. So are you starting to see that shift more?
Yeah. And I do think the internet's great, right? I love the internet, but we could write a blog today that said the earth is flat. And to the people who think the earth is flat, I apologize. But I haven't fallen off yet. Have you fallen off, Connor?
No,
Yeah,
still
we've
here.
gone pretty far. But I digress. So we could write a blog about how that is what it is. And somebody somewhere will read it, and somebody somewhere will believe it. And they will say, no, Connor, it is flat because I read it on the internet. That's the challenge. And I think that oftentimes without that level of trust and without that level of communication and that additional time on the phone to make someone feel very comfortable, we can lose them into the internet where they can find anything. They're thinking that buying points is the right thing for their family, or they're thinking that owner financing is the right thing. I had to talk 3 people out of owner financing just this week on this one house that hit the market because it just wasn't right for them. Like, hey, I get it, and it says it, and it sounds great, but it's 10% interest. I talked to somebody liquidating their 401k yesterday. They wanted to buy land. They felt like they needed to buy land because they would own the land and it'd be their land. We'll take a loan for it. Please don't pull your 401k. Their 401k was making 10+% on that. We're lending it 5.75. So let that money grow, borrow a little bit here. And so again, somewhere, somehow on the internet, that's a good idea. And so it's a challenge. But I think it goes back to pouring into our partners, pouring into the education, helping them understand that we just need to guide them in whatever best direction that is. And if we guide enough people in the best direction, there's plenty of business for all of us to make a living.
Right. And at the same time, though, there's something to be said about the internet also being a great place to build trust, like through social media. I know that's something that you lean on quite a bit as a strategy to sort of support your efforts and to build trust through authenticity. Whether you've got, what did you say? You've got a one take, one post rule. You got
Oh my
rain,
God,
soak,
such a
hair,
rule.
whatever, right? So how has that authenticity played a role in just building trust with your clients and referral partners?
Yeah. So I think it's what I really focused on at the very beginning, I've got somebody who runs the social for me, but I provide the content, I provide the direction. It's always my voice, it's always my face, right? There are statistics out there that say if they can hear you, if they can see you, immediately they trust you. People come up to me in the grocery store and they're like, "Hey, Ryan." I'm like, "Hey." The other day I was walking. When you get your nails done, you got to go wash your hands, And so they're done doing all their stuff and I go wash your hands. So I walk back to wash my hands at the nail salon. Somebody in this pedicure chair says, "Hey, Ryan, how are you?" I just said hi. I had no idea who it was. Later, they sent me a message on social. Wanted to let you know it was me at the nail salon. I know you didn't recognize me. So people follow, and they follow for education. And they follow for authenticity. And what I have noticed is, and I do have a one take rule. So even if I get interrupted or if I don't feel as though I look my best, it's still going up. There aren't days anymore where it's like, I've got makeup on today, I'm going to just post everything today, right? But they want authenticity and they want education and they want somebody to prove that they know how to do it. And so social provides that. And I have shot videos only to get traction before. I've shot videos in an elf costume before to talk about getting closed before Christmas because it was the message that the agents needed to share because we needed more people to hear it. And so I'm not going to sit there and go, due diligence. Due diligence in the state of North Carolina it's not going to happen because that's stuff that they can Google. Can we talk about pitfalls? Can we talk about successes? Can we talk about relatable instances? And then can I shoot the content that you're going to look at and you're going to go, that's important for people to know, but I'm surely never going to put that elf costume on, and you share it. Right? And so that's the most important thing is how many people can we touch with the right message?
Yeah, I think that's great. I love that how you're using it. Now, I'm going to brag on you for a minute because before as we were preparing for this episode and we spoke, you mentioned you had like 11.5 million under contract. You're expanding into new construction. You're doing it all without like dumpster fires at month end. I'm thinking of that loan officer out there that's stuck at like 4 or 5 loans a month and they're grinding and they're just, working their tail off and trying to figure out how do I get out of this? What's your advice to that originator to get to where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the most important thing is measurable actions. So instead of running around and saying, 1 cup of coffee or 1 lunch equals 1 loan, it's way beyond that. It is, and it's how you really run any business. It is what action gives best result. And then how do we perfect that action and duplicate that action to get multiple results? And then how is that data trackable? And if that data is trackable, then we can see what gives us the best ROI. And then we can take that and we can just compound it and compound it and compound it. And I think that goes back to originally how I started my business. So looking at really where the leads are coming from, how many people I'm impacting, what community events am I doing, what am I sponsoring, how many times did they see my face this week, how many times did I remind people what I do for a living. I mean, all that's so important. And when I talk to new agents, I always say, like, hey, Connor, how many people know what you do for a living? And then I'll go back to my beach story. Hi, I'm Ryan. Nice to meet you. What do you do for a living? Because I want to know. Like, I want to know what you do. I want to know how we click. I want to tell you what I do. I want to give you a pen with my name on it because you might need that. Or if you need chapstick, like I've got chapstick with my name on it too, because I want you to remember who I am. And I don't think in our world it is bad to tell people what you do for a living. I think that we shy away from it. I think we too much as humans, we're like, oh gosh, this is what I do and I support my children, but I don't want to tell anybody. Like, hell no, I'm going to tell everybody. Like, you want to buy a house? We're at the boat ramp in the lake in the summer. And I'm like, hey, who needs a house? I'll say it, And then my friend who's an attorney, we're like, yeah, and she's got legal advice. And if you need this, he's got this, because people want to know, love, and trust. And they want to be able to text you and say, hey, I've got a quick question. Yeah, what is it? Do you think I should refinance right now? Well, what's your rate? Yeah, I think we can do it. Do you want my guys to pull it? We'll pull it. We'll send you no obligation, but just take a look at it, And I think it's important to tell people what we do because everybody needs something. And if we can help as many people, again, I think that's just tremendous and compounding in all things.
And if they don't know what you do, they don't know how you can help. And so I think it's
That's
great that
true.
you're getting that message out there. So
Yeah.
as we kind of get here closer to the end, I want to focus on a topic that I know is dear to you because I could tell when we spoke before that this was a really important subject for you, which is just financial literacy. You brought up that you kind of teach your kids to have a one want a month rule and talked about wanting to put kind of like Shark Tank money into financial education at the university level. How do you see the bigger picture when you're thinking about financial literacy, connecting back to the clients you serve? And does it change the way that you approach your work?
So it does. It really does. So financial literacy to me, and I always tell people this, like, hey, we don't teach this in school because we don't. And I think the scariest thing is that in society, now there are absolutely 1000% professions that you need an education on. I'd love my surgeon to go to school to learn how to cut me open, please. But there are so many of us that went to school that carry something called student loan debt that don't utilize their true education. And I think it starts from the very beginning. We say, hey, where are your kids going to school? Well, I might say, they didn't. He's going to be an electrician. And we as a society need to be okay with that. So he'll go and he'll be an apprentice at the community college and he'll be an electrician and he'll make $150,000 in 2 years. That's a really good living, right? And guess how much student loan debt he has? None. And so guess what he can afford? A car and a house, right? And so oftentimes we'll leave school with 5 years of student loan debt, and we have to calculate that student loan debt at a percentage because at the end of the day, if you were to buy a house and have student loans, you've got to decide which one you're going to pay. Because if this comes out of being forgiven, you have to pay for it. And what are you going to choose, right? And so we have to calculate it. So oftentimes there are people that have a car and they have student loan debt and they can't afford a house. So we haven't taught that literacy to them. So if I could invest money into education for younger students, I would do that. Just all of everyone, right? Because I think that we're lacking it. And I think that if we can understand it better, we can spend our money better. We can buy more appreciating assets like houses. We can forego the depreciating assets that we don't necessarily need. And, it is small impact, but I am doing it with my children. I did instill that policy of a one want for a month because we buy too much shit. We don't need it, right? It could be that I'm tired of stepping on it because it finds its way on the floor. But I also feel like it's so important. Last night I was at my desk and my daughter came to me and she said, I know my wants for the month. And I said, well, your month is not reset until Sunday because that's when the month is reset. And I said, we can talk about it, but it is what it is, right? So you can't buy anything until March 1st anyways. She wants to buy a $4.99 movie off of Amazon. Now we've come a long way, right? Because it used to be we'd go to Target and we'd want 4 Lego sets a month. Now it's one $4.99 movie. So I'm slowly changing their mentality. And as I share that with my friends go, yep, we're doing that policy too. And so, if we can start small and impact, I think it makes a big deal. But if I did have Shark Tank money, I absolutely would teach the masses that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love that. So I know we've talked about a lot. I want to give you an opportunity to address anything that we haven't talked about. Is there a question I didn't ask? Is there something on your mind, advice you want to share? I want to give you that opportunity as we wrap up to just say whatever's on your mind, whatever you think is important.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing when it comes to home buying truly is just trusting your team, right? Like everybody has a team. It's your agent. It could be your home inspector. It could be your lender, but just trusting that process. I tell my prospects, my potential buyers, find somebody that you trust, right? We all pretty much shop the same rate market. We all pretty much can charge the same amount of points. Title work is title work, appraisal and inspection or appraisal and inspection. But shop the person that's going to pick up the phone, that's going to take their time, explain it, and truly enjoy putting you in a home. And if you can find that team, you'll have a fantastic home buying experience. And that's my only advice. And it could be our team, love for it to be, or it could be another team. But whomever you work with, just make sure that you feel loved and you feel educated and you feel communicated to, because that in this purchase is, I think, the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, I think that's great advice. And I just want to say thanks for coming on the lowdown and sharing your story and letting people learn who you are and what you stand for. And just, I wish you the best in the future. And thanks for joining the show.
Absolutely. Thank you.